As you watch hip hop over the course of years, months, weeks, days, it doesn't matter if you started listening to hip hop in 2009 or if you started listening to hip hop in 1983. What will always remain the same is the thought that the music has to sound a certain way. We have to get back to the original mode of where this culture was really based at. It wasn't too long, where we all found out that part of the need that the old head has, where sonically I want things to remain a certain way, that's bullshit. And we've deconstructed that. And now the newer hope that you can at least stand on is that the philosophy is at least the same. So if you're going to sound a certain way, at least have some sort of ethos to yourself. And that way you do resemble those artists of the past. In that way, you do sort of hold, you sort of take Excalibur out of the stone because you're remaining with that same principle that at least made the music good, and at least now you'll operate in the world as a good person. If you guys will remember, in December of 2018, when Kodak Black walked out of the interview with Ebro, the response to that was like, oh man, Ebro, being a hater, and Kodak's just out here, he's just young, he's just wild, and if he wants to walk out of the interview, then so be it, because Ebro should be lucky that a new artist wants to talk to this old media, old head shit. That was the reaction, and I think that's where the problem lies. The problem with Kodak Black, I don't think it's that I don't think the problem with Kodak Black is Kodak Black, because Kodak Black is young. He's just like every other kid from every other neighborhood that you've met. And because of that, we all have to recognize that we can infantilize somebody to a point that they have no consequences. Everything that they do is done with a good intention in their head. So at the very least, what we can all agree upon is that Kodak Black is out here because he wants prosperity and he wants to give to his tribe. And that's how we justify it. And in justifying that, that's where you infantilize people. You had Cardi B just a couple of weeks ago exposing the fact that she drugged men when she was a prostitute, and she had mentioned that she had needed the studio money. So the reaction that you got from people was, well, she needed the money, she had to do this, it was a means to an end. And that's a bit of a different conversation, because we're talking about a female and what she has to do in order to protect herself. Did she have protection from a man? And if she had that protection or that somebody to provide, would she have done that in the first place? That's sort of a different argument, but it's still an example of how you can infantilize an artist and just bypass their responsibility to be a decent person. And Kodak Black walking out of that interview was very important, and it sort of gave you a window into his attitude about things. And if you oppose me, I will walk out. I'm not even going to have a conversation with you. I'm not even going to talk to you about this. And as you guys, may remember in the video that I made in December of 2018, it's in the description below. I was discussing how he was given an out. He was given an out by Ebro because Ebro didn't ask him directly. He just said, there's certain things that are on the news cycle that you participated with. I know you can't talk about it now, but maybe in the future we can have that conversation. All Kodak Black had to say was, yeah, we can talk about it some other time, but, not at this point. And they would have moved on. It's just Kodak, maybe he's not media trained or, whatever have you. But put Kodak Black in that situation where he has all autonomy. He has all the power in the world to either get up, to answer that question differently. Even within that context of that interview, people will still give him an out. People will give him an out and say, well, that's what you get when you don't treat an artist a certain way. You're supposed to treat him with kid gloves because you're a dying medium, or you're not listening to his message and you're hating on him and he's just out here because he wants to provide for his tribe. And all these justifications are why Kodak Black said the things that he said about Nipsey Hussle's wife. and now apparently Kodak Black getting himself arrested. So he's not the problem. He's not the problem. The problem is that when you're young like that and you're getting all the attention of all these people that you don't even know, by the way, you don't know why they're justifying the things that you do. The reason why you would justify Kodak doing whatever he does, whatever he says, is going to be completely different from what somebody within his circle or how they justify it. So you don't know him. He doesn't know you. So that already sort of, puts a glitch in the matrix as far as his problem solving and, and how he operates within things, because life is arbitrary enough. It's arbitrary that when you wake up one morning and today could be the greatest day of your life and it could be the worst day of your life. You don't know. You have no idea. You can have examples that can present themselves to you. You can get a promotion at work. You can start a business. You can do a whole lot of different things that will give you answers as to what sort of a day this is. But overall, life is pretty arbitrary. And understanding that as an adult and knowing that as an adult is already that's already overwhelming, and you just have to bear that responsibility to know that most of the time you're not going to know whether you're right or wrong, or if something is great, or if it's, you know what I'm saying? So imagine Kodak Black being in the situations that he finds himself in, saying the things that he says on Instagram Live, walking out of interviews, getting arrested. I like how I'm just sort of equating it like it's the same thing, and they're on the same scale with each other, but obviously one is much more terrible than the other. But it's very difficult to make situations, to make decisions in certain situations when there's such an arbitrary nature to life. And if you're 23, 24 years old and you have all this fame and you have all these people, having opinions on what you do, you're going to be a tyrant. You're going to do a lot of stupid things. You're going to say a lot of wild things, and then you're going to sort of pretend like even your bad opinions or the terrible shit that you share is just an expression of who you are as an individual, and it justifies why you have the platform that you have. That's the mistake that Floyd Mayweather makes. Floyd Mayweather says whatever he wants to do. He says whatever he wants to say, and then if you press him enough, he's just going to reach this stage of immobility where he will not move, and he will say, that's what makes me me, and that's why I'm me, and that's why I gross this and I gross that, and that's why I am Floyd Mayweather. See, the problem with that is that that's the classic OJ Simpson approach. I'm not black, I'm OJ. Okay, we'll see when you get your nigger moment, as Paul Mooney famously put it as. Getting your nigger moment, just getting your reminder that you live in a world with consequences. I know the term is nigger moment, but it's true with all human beings. You're always going to reach that moment when you realize that your arrogance cannot be the way you get out of every single thing that you do in your life, because otherwise you don't admit when you're wrong. You do not admit when you're wrong, and you just continue to justify everything that you do because of what you've manifested or what you brought about. Floyd Mayweather can very well say, let's say he dies in 30 to 40 years. I'm not wishing that upon him, but obviously he will die at one point. Spoiler alert, Floyd Mayweather is mortal. When that happens, you'll probably find out that Floyd was, he was donating this and donating that and speaking to this person behind the scenes and really being the noble person that we would have liked him to be, sort of mirroring sort of a Muhammad Ali, just being an athlete that's aware socially and still is about their business. However, it sometimes serves the public to be an example of what we would like to see. It's not your responsibility. It's not your job. But at the very least, don't jump on TMZ and say, this is why I am who I am and they are who they are. And this is why I wear Gucci because you might as well just be silent if that's the approach that you're going to take, because if you're not a part of the solution, then you're a part of the problem. But Kodak Black can easily make that mistake, and It's fine because he's 23, he's 24. However, the burden falls on us because whenever these young rappers get into any sort of conflict, any sort, be it conflict at an interview, we always give them the right of way. And that's a mistake. That's a mistake. And because he's young and he has all this attention, this is how he's logically going to figure things out. You know, it's not like Kodak in his head. He goes, well, when I walked out of the interview, most people were kind of on my side. Well, you know, it's not mathematical like that. But you could imagine that that's probably what his life has been like for the past few years, you know, where people have sort of treated him like it's fine because he's produced this, he's done this, and he's grossed that, and he's very important to his immediate neighborhood or his immediate circle. So at least from a communal, tribal sense, he's transitioned to the point now where everybody essentially treats him the same as his circle used to, because his circle knew that he was valuable, and now he gets to the point where you get to see all that manifested, and now his fans are treating him the same way his circle did. Now, because of that, he does what he does. So I will not say that Kodak Black is stupid. I will not say that Kodak Black is basically destroying himself, but we destroy these people. We enable them. We congratulate their shitty behavior. I do not believe in canceling Kodak Black, however, because Kodak Black at the same time provides a product. And when he provides a product, you are really setting yourself on a long voyage, on a fool's errand by thinking that you canceling Kodak Black or stopping his streaming is somehow going to be a solution to any of this. And that goes with anybody, by the way. It's not that I don't feel like I believe in canceling things. I just don't think it's useful. It doesn't solve anything. There will be a point where somebody says something and they will be totally abolished as far as their streaming. It's going to get to that point, and we're going to be able to observe it and look at it. And what we'll find is that all it does is stop their revenue stream. That's all it does. And you can't stop it completely because obviously people have their loyal fan bases, and you know, then you could say, well, Spotify can. Okay, so now we're determining what private businesses do with people. So just remember that you wanting that person to lose their income because of what they say in the real world is you now want their revenue to be affected by private businesses like Spotify. You want them to be censored through Twitter. If you want all of that, just remember that that will get turned on back to you. That pendulum will swing against you. Maybe not now, but it will affect you in the future because you've okayed that. So the same will be okayed to you on a smaller scale, obviously. And since you were a person with less influence and less power than Kodak Black or Kanye or anybody who's outspoken, who says stupid shit, and now we want to just burn down their castle, just remember that the same thing should and will be done to you. So canceling somebody in that case is just, it's not useful. It's not useful to us. It's better for us to consider how we perceive people's approaches and people's comments when they input on certain things. You know, I can never really get with. I can't really get with this is done because of attention, because although everything is done for attention, that doesn't help us solve anything. Like, all this shit is algorithmic. All of this, everything that's coming to you. If you believe that all this is a conspiracy and that the powers that be are controlling everything, that what you have to understand that the powers that be they've skimmed all this through, and they know what information can be disseminated to you. And since they know what information can be disseminated to you, it is your job to look at every single case as a different sort of a session. You know, if two people do one thing, if somebody else makes a comment about somebody's widow shortly after they die, then you can't necessarily say that, oh, they're doing it for attention. There's something else under the hood. This person can be going through depression. This person can be going through something very serious, And although they're getting attention for it, I don't think it serves us to just conclude it to that. And to me, that's more of a making commentary on commentators themselves. I mean, obviously, people in their daily lives can say whatever the fuck they want. I just feel as a means to move things forward and to figure things out, I don't think that's very helpful. But I'm definitely like getting sidetracked. But we make Kodak Black into the person that you see right before you. The young man that just got arrested, the young man that said the comments about Laura London. And it's not like I'm, I don't think Laura London or Nipsey Hussle are now royalty because Nipsey was tragically killed. It's because the public is deeming this to be a very sacred issue right now, which is what most of free speech issues are about. It's they go on different levels. It's not always about you shouldn't say this. Sometimes it's you shouldn't say this right now. Right now is not the time to say that. And because of that, there's a sensitivity around the subject. And you could make a case and say that whatever Kodak said, it was just stupid. It was just a dumb comment. But the timing of the comment, it wasn't appropriate. So I don't think that he's royalty. I don't think she's royalty. I don't think the topic of Nipsey Hussle is a sacred cow. Only because I Nipsey doing the things that he did was great. But what we can't do is we can't pretend like Nipsey isn't an archetype. All good people that we have are all archetypes. And that's a very good way to look at it, because that means if something tragic happens, the next man up, and the next man up. That's how every system, that's how every team moves towards victory. It's the next man up. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Warriors. The Warriors, I believe it was released in 1979. Warriors is a great movie to me, for many, many, many reasons. And one of the main reasons why it's a very important film is because the very first thing that happens after the biggest gang leader in the city gets shot, killed tragically in front of most of or the largest gangs in New York City. What happens to the Warriors is their leader gets killed, or he gets arrested, or he gets beaten, and they no longer have any contact with their leader. I believe his name was Leon. So Leon gets accused of shooting Cyrus, who is the biggest gang leader. He was a visionary. He tried to bind all gangs together to work against the police. Of course, you could say that it's very, it's very tyrannical what he was looking out to do, because one would question his intentions. His intentions may seem very noble in the eyes of other gang members, but in the eyes of what he would want to do to the public, maybe there's a different opinion to that. But nonetheless, Cyrus was killed, and then just minutes after that, the Warriors were accused of being the ones that killed them. So the first thing that happens is the leader gone. He's out of the picture. Doesn't matter if he's dead. Doesn't matter if he got arrested. It doesn't matter what happened. And I think that's very important, because Swan, who was the next in command, had to lead throughout the rest of the film. There was no conversation about what had happened to him. What are we going to, what consequences came to him? Let's go look for him. It's just next man up. And that's because Leon was an archetype. He was an archetype. He was a mold of the leader. He was a mold of the nobleman, just like Nipsey Hussle was. Nipsey Hussle was the mold of the man who came into, the man who grew up in his neighborhood, brought prosperity to that neighborhood, wanted to employ other people, and he wanted to encourage other people to do the same. Now, there are other rappers in this industry that do the same thing. The Styles of the Locks, has been involved in Juices for Life, which is a juicing shop here in New York City. They've expanded it to several different locations. You guys may have heard of this. You've heard him vaguely mention this with Angela Yee, because she's a business partner of his. So Styles has been doing that. He got Jadakiss involved into that as well. Fat Joe here in Fordham, New York, And in Washington Heights, where I grew up, Fat Joe has sneaker stores, So, David Banner, just in terms of just wisdom, in terms of just like, of just consciousness, David Banner, he's somebody that should be listened to. Obviously, I never shut the fuck up about Killer Mike. I always bring him up. But my point is that all of them are archetypes. If something unfortunate happens to any of the people that I mentioned, it's the next man up, the next man up. And the best way that we can empower, I think, this culture is to understand that what Nipsey did was very noble, and it's not the collapse of something. It's not the end of something. Nipsey's existence and what he did is an example of something has been done right to this point, and that's something that we never admit. We never admit that we have done something right. The conversation after Nipsey's death is it's such a good one. It's such a good one and such an empowering one that the biggest problem is Kodak Black saying something about Laura London. That's how powerful it is when you sort of, you represent yourself in a certain way and everybody sort of has this opinion of you. It's not really an opinion at that point. It's just who you actually are. And since the conversation has been about that, I think we have to pay attention to the progress that's being done here. Nipsey dying is a realization that, first of all, we should pay attention to other people who are of the same ilk, because there are plenty beyond the people that I mentioned. Respect should be given to those individuals. And what we should also do is not vilify those who don't do it, who they don't have that mind frame. That's not their mindset. We shouldn't shame other artists and say, like, you should be like this person, because that person's the archetype. They're the leader. They're the leader. Within the Warriors, you had different personalities. You had different people that make the whole structure operate because they do different things and they highlight certain attributes that they had. It just so happens that the leader seems to have this all-encompassing skill to put things together. And it's the next person up. It's the next man up. So the conversation about, man, Nip did this, and this is how the neighborhood repays him. There's a lot of people like Nipsey Hussle. Individually, of course, Nipsey Hussle was who he was, but there's a lot of people like him, and I think to say that is to give hip hop more credit, because I think hip hop needs to get more credit than, oh, this guy died, and look at the example that it's not exactly like what Nipsey was doing was under the hood. I was very aware of who Nipsey Hussle was. I'm sure a lot of you were as well. With social media, you got a lot of sound bites from Nipsey. And of course, if you listen to his music, you knew that Nipsey was this kind of person. That's part of what kept Nipsey out of the news cycle, because Nipsey's music didn't really stand out. By the way, standing out or not, I mean, one of the absolute greatest songs in terms of exercising. I don't know how many of you exercise avidly, but I do. Hustle and Motivate, like, without a doubt, just like the tempo of that song is just perfect. Hustle and Motivate. If you've never listened to Nipsey Hussle, just listen to that song, and I think you really get a feel for who he is. But his music never stood out, and obviously there's not much public BS to attach him to. I mean, outside of him just randomly slapping that guy on video, which was pretty funny. Outside of that, Nipsey really didn't give you anything to comment about. And because of that, I think it speaks to the person that he is. The same way, with all the other artists that I mentioned, I think it says a lot about them as well, because, a lot of this is triggered towards entertainment. It's triggered towards, sensationalism, and I think that's a compliment to Nipsey. Now, because he isn't mentioned, like, I listen to a lot of content. I listen to a lot of content when I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing, and I hear a lot of opinions from people, and a lot that I really disagree. The notion that Nipsey Hussle, people are benefiting off of Nipsey Hussle's death because they're talking about this. Is a weird thing that's happening on YouTube now, where YouTube sort of in this new in this new mode of, there are a lot of people that are aware that this is an opportunity now. A lot of people are aware that this is a quote unquote bag. This used to be more of a calling. This used to be something that you did because you wanted to speak about the happenings of rap music, whatever it is that you wanted to discuss, whether you want to glorify this or glorify that or dissect this or dissect that. This used to be more of a calling, but now it's taken more of an opportunity. And now, since people are aware that you can make revenue off of doing these videos, all of people's motives are now compartmentalized into, you're just saying this for your own self-interest. And that's damaging to all of us. That's how we shoot ourselves in the face. I don't think that's very productive. There's a lot of unproductive things that happen within black media on YouTube. A lot of unproductive things that happen. A lot of things that we say to each other. We don't really embrace debate. There's not really much debating, because once a conversation starts, it's all about, hey man, I brought you on my platform to talk about this, to talk about that. And all of a sudden it's like a couple bickering, rather than two people exchanging ideas, or some people that have opposing ideas and they don't want to bring them up against each other, because that would be, maybe you'd have to reconsider how you think. I don't know. Go figure. I think the mark of any intelligent person is a person who is open to having their mind changed and open to taking in new information that maybe they didn't consider. So, I have no intellectual pride over anything that I've ever said on YouTube. No, none whatsoever. I have no intellectual pride over something that I said 4, 5, 6 years ago or a month ago. I don't, because everything is subject to change, but that fluidity is only intellectual, I think that's important, that we keep that fluidity as far as the conversation goes, because the conversation is fluid. I just think it's not helpful. It's not helpful. And we know where we get our information from. Everyone is aware of where, if you're listening to this content, I know where most of you get your information from, and I get my information from a variety of places. But if you're going to be a part of the conversation here on YouTube, if you're just going to be a listener, moving forward, we have to know the power of us coming together and dissecting things, because no one knows the culture more than us. We've observed it. We've looked at it. We are not your coworker who just heard that Eminem dissed Donald Trump 3-4 years ago. Like you've been watching this pretty closely, and sometimes it's kind of hard to realize that, because if you've had this microscope over hip hop, it's really difficult for you to see that other people don't see it as clearly as you do. And since we look at this so closely, I think it's very important that we understand that there are some people that are here because this is an opportunity, but there are also people here because it's a calling. People who have a mark of respect for the subject that they're discussing. It's, I sound like a dinosaur. I sound like I'm giving a lame speech about, hey man, we should all talk and we should all be open to each other's ideas. But you got to understand, what I'm saying is completely radical. It's completely radical, because these days to say that something is not just an opportunity is to betray who you think you are in the Western world, because everybody is told that they have to be expedient, that they have to move forward and destroy all things, all objects that are in front of them. And to sort of say that something that you partake in is that, of course, it's an opportunity as well. But what it also is a means to connect to other people and to discuss things with other people and to help the overall to basically help the overall landscape of hip hop, of how we think, And I think failure to do that is part of the reason why Kodak Black does the things that he does, is because we don't come together enough, and there's no debate, there's no conversation. Whenever I say the conversation, it's a conversation that's had between me and other creators, and I don't care who those creators are, by the way. I've featured creators who have smaller followings on my channel because I just think that they need to be heard, and they are talented, and they have a mark of respect for what we're doing. So it doesn't matter to me how large someone is, how small someone is. I value what the person has to say, and there's not enough value over the things that people have to say. There's not enough value. So this gets turned into an opportunity, and it basically gets turned into what rap always gets turned into. And I think we still have a chance to turn rap commentary into something more authentic, rap commentary into something that we acknowledge that everyone is here because we all have to eat. Everyone has to eat. So there's an opportunity here for everyone. But more than that, you are not above the culture. You're not above what you're speaking about. And if you think you're above what you're speaking about, then you're just a tyrant, You're a zealot, You're just a person who you're online because you want to give yourself some podium to defend yourself with. So you're defending yourself more than anything else. You're not really having a conversation. You're just like working out some failure that you some way that you had failed yourself in the past, and now you feel like you're defending yourself in that very same way that you weren't able to. Like it's this weird thing with people. So part of strengthening the bond between everybody is changing how we see things, like what Kodak Black did, things that he did in that interview, things that he did when he made those comments about that man's wife, and things that he's obviously decided to do now, like, do that moronic thing with transporting guns, and, the car smelling like weed, and all that goes into your decisions. Let this be a lesson to you. Let it be a lesson to you that when the older figures in rap point at something, at the very least, you got to examine what they're saying. You can't dismiss it, because we've seen too many examples. We've seen too many examples of people getting arrested. We've seen too many examples of people getting killed. We've seen too many examples of people just making insensitive statements that are just, the timing of it is just totally just inappropriate. We see people behave in these ways, and we continue to justify what they do because we want to treat them like children, and we want to sort of pretend like everything that they do is in pursuit of the goal that we would want ourselves. And it's a huge mistake, and we are doing a disservice to Kodak Black by doing that. Of course, the counter argument to what I'm saying with the infantilization would be, well, you're infantilizing him because you're not making him take responsibility for what he does. I do believe that Kodak Black takes responsibility for what he does, because he doesn't have a choice. He got arrested. So regardless of what I think of that interview, regardless of what I think about the Lord London situation, he is definitely being met with his own consequences. Whether he wants to take ownership of that is what's in between Kodak Black's fucking mind. I have no idea. I can't control what Kodak Black takes responsibility for or what he doesn't. But he definitely gets failed by us as a collective when the loudest voice that barks back at Kodak, I don't believe it's "you're stupid, shut the fuck up." I think that the loudest bark thrown at Kodak is, man, you're just a young dude out here, and you're just, these people are in your way, and they don't understand you. They don't understand your vision. They don't understand where you came from. They don't understand that, So it's justifying. It's justifying everything that he does, and it is a huge, huge mistake.